हेलो एंड वेलकम टू RCI's नवशिखर चैनल। आप सभी का RCI के नवशिखर चैनल में बहुत स्वागत है। We are back with another topic and another expert. I am Anna Gupta along with the expert for today, Mrs. Anju Saxena. She is the course coordinator, academic coordinator at the Sri Ram School, and she's going to adapt on the topic Introduction to Learning Disability, its types and its management. For our viewers, if they want to contact us regarding any of their queries or regarding any question, they can contact us at our toll-free number 1800112008. Our phone number is 265111613 and our fax number is 265111609. Moving on to the topic for today, that is learning disability. First, we'll understand what is learning disability. When we say the term learning, समझने की क्षमता जो है हमने क्या कैसे हम किसी चीज को समझ पाते हैं एंड जो हमने समझा है उसको हम कैसे एक्सप्रेस कर पाते हैं. डिसेबिलिटी हमारी जो हमारी एबिलिटीज हैं, जब उस चीज में कोई बाधा आ जाती है तो उसमें किस प्रकार की प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं. तो समझने की क्षमता में जिस प्रकार की बाधाएं आती हैं वो और क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम्स लाती हैं लाइफ में. लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी जनरली ये पढ़ाई के उसमें माना जाता है एंड इसके बारे में हम और आगे बात करेंगे. मैम, फर्स्ट वीड लाइक टू आस्क कि हाउ डू वी डिफाइन लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी. जनरली कोई भी थोड़ा बच्चा अगर पुअर होता है पढ़ाई में तो उसको स्कूल में बोल देते हैं कि लर्निंग डिसेबल्ड है या इस पढ़ाई में बहुत कमज़ोर है. तो क्या हर एक बच्चा जो थोड़ा कमज़ोर होता है वो लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी कैटेगरी में आता है?
नहीं, ऐसा सच नहीं है. हर एक बच्चा जो पढ़ाई में कमज़ोर होगा, like the one who is lagging behind is not a child with learning difficulties, learning disability. Basically, when we talk about learning disability, it's about a very specific learning disability. Like usually children have normal IQ also. They are not slow learner, they are not mentally retarded, but they show some problems, maybe in reading, maybe in writing, and sometimes maybe in maths also. Basically, this is a problem where children have some specific reading difficulties or specific writing difficulties, or sometimes they don't have reading writing difficulties but they only show problem in maths, in understanding, in perceiving math skills. So then we can just ask parents to refer that child to a special educator for the assessment. And usually we don't label the child as and whenever like we get children who are slow in studies, we don't believe in labeling them.
So ma'am, how do we start with learning disability today, the topic?
Okay,
today?
Basically we'll go through this presentation, and along with the presentation we'll talk about it from our experiences and from schools, and we can take one or two examples also to explain learning disability. Like if you can look at this presentation, this particular slide here, like this is an example of it's an example of a writing from a child who is suffering with dyslexia. Like he has written, my name is Anand, I love school and my friends, I like the pictures in books, but my is pain. When all the words start bouncing and moving, I cry when my teacher gets angry, when I cannot read, I'm not stupid, I love books. Basically, if you can see here, this child is not able to spell some words, though he is able to write here, but he has written school as SK, instead of SCH. And my friends, here in friends you will see some spelling mistakes. Pictures in books, here, instead of B, he has written D here. So they do these small mistakes. What we are again, like we are going to see it again in next few slides. Like, but my is pain. When all the words start bouncing, basically he wanted to write dancing and moving. I cry when my teacher gets angry. In place of Y, he has just written I. So these are very small spelling mistakes these children can do. And like if we go to the next slide, here in this slide we are talking about a specific learning difficulty characterized by, basically when we talk about learning disability, it is very specific. It is specific to reading, writing, or it is specific to maths, or sometimes it is related to writing also. So like here we talk about dyslexia. Dyslexia is a specific learning difficulty where children are facing problem with reading, writing, spellings, and then written expressions also. Like here I have written a specific learning difficulty characterized by poor spelling, poor word recognition, poor decoding skills, also difficulty with organizing written information. When children have problem with reading, because reading is the first to develop. So when they have problem with reading development, like sometimes they are not able to recognize letters also, and sometimes they are able to recognize letters, but they are again not able to recognize the sound which these letters give. So when they have problem with letter recognition or maybe sound recognition, they have then problem with processing of sound also. Then again a word is made with different letters, and different letters are giving different sounds. They have to organize them in a sequence, and they have to pronunciate it after that. So they have problem with that. And when children have problem with reading, they will show problem in writing also.
So it's not basically with the understanding level, it's about expressing.
It is, sometimes it is, there is a problem with perception also. We say that till now their research are just saying that there is some problem with neuroprocessing difficulties. There is, like the way our neurons, our brain cells process the information, and difficulties in perceiving there, like they are not able to perceive the letters properly, and sometimes they can recognize the letters after working with them, but then you have to work on sounds also, and then sequencing of sounds to make a word also. So yes, definitely there is a problem with perception also.
So like the characteristics that you've just mentioned, like the poor spelling, the organization problem, we can see it in the kids that are there in schools. So we cannot characterize them under the learning disability.
No, if you see that child is having difficulty, and especially from that elementary age, if you are seeing, and the difficulties are more than like the frequency is very high, and difficulty is much more than other children, because every child in that starting stage, when he's in a learning stage of spellings, reading, writing, they will take time to learn it. It's not that they will learn it automatically in a day or two. They also take time, but in these children frequency is very high and difficulty is much more than other children. So then you can refer that child to a special educator or to a clinical psychologist, and then the proper assessment can be done for them.
So an assessment can differentiate between a
yes, there is an assessment called GLAD assessment, grade level assessment device, through which we work. But we don't assess, we don't label the child before the age of 6 or 7, because till that age they get the maximum exposure, and after 6 or 7 we can do the formal assessment, and we can really help him out.
So like GLAD is based on the class level, it's still class 4.
Yes.
So in that case we are just looking up to the level of the child that is
in
there.
GLAD, one thing is level, and the other thing is that if you see GLAD carefully, there is a task for reading, there's a task for writing, there's a task for silent reading, and then comprehension. So based on all that, you can really assess the child, along with other scales. Like clinical psychologists have some standardized scales, they've used those scales, and there is DSM-4 also, diagnostic criteria also. So based on all that, you have to combine all the assessments to label the child. But usually we don't believe in labeling, we just look at their strengths and weaknesses, and we work through strengths on the weaknesses.
Okay. So ma'am, what next do we have with dyslexia?
Like if you see how a child with dyslexia reads, there are 5 people in a bus, 2 more people come into the bus. How many people are there in all? There are 5 in a sub bus. They can, why we are showing bus here as sub, because they do the mirror image. Sometimes what happens, because of some problem with visual perceptual skills, they are reading a word, but they're reading a word in its mirror image, with its mirror image. And like to room, 2 more people dash come into sub, that comes into bus. How many are there in all? So sometimes they are reading only half a word, they're not able to read the word as a whole. So there are so many problems, small problems like reversals, inversions, and mirror images, and then leaving a word incomplete when reading it or when writing it. So all these problems they can face.
So this like mirror image that we're talking about, we can also say it in the property of organizing, like the characteristic that we just seen.
No. Basically, when we are talking about mirror image, we are talking like as you just mentioned earlier also that they have problem with perception. Yes, definitely they have problems with perception, but you really have to find out where is the problem actually, where is it lying. Whether it's lying with the visual perceptual area or whether it's lying in audio perceptual area, because sometimes children are able to see but they are not able to perceive it in a way it's written. So like I have just shown here, like mirror image or maybe inversion or maybe reversal. So children are looking at it, children are able to see it, but the way they are perceiving it, that image, what forming in the brain and then reflecting back, there they have problem. And sometimes when you must have noticed also children attending the dictation, but they are not writing the proper word, and if you see it, the pattern, if you look at the pattern will almost be the same. So that shows that okay, they must be having some problem with perception of those sounds, or maybe perception of a blend. When you're saying, teacher is saying black, but did he hear blur, did he hear burr, then lur after burr? In that way it's an organization of letters one after the another, sequencing, but we call it sequencing. So they have problems with perception area.
Is it just with the words, or they can reverse the letter also while writing?
They reverse the letter also. Like you must have seen, they have written burr as der or der as burr. When ma'am is saying dog, but they have written bog. When ma'am is saying bell, they have written del. Or there are other words also, like was ko they write. If it is was, they can write it saw for the mirror image, or W can be written as an ulta mo, it can be inverted back.
Okay.
So that way also, upside down and downside up. So they do that. And the frequency with these children is high. Though children of normal age, during that age period, I will say during that period of 4, 5, 6, 7, when they're learning to write, though normal children also do the same, but the frequency, again I will say that you have to look at the frequency. If a normal child is doing it, but he is doing it maybe once in 10 times, or maybe 2 in 10 times, and that too 4 to 5 times a week, but this child might be doing 7 to 8 times in 10 times, but maybe 4 to 5 times in a week. So you have to look at the frequency, because frequency will be giving you a signal. So that way. And then along with it, these children they show other problems also. Like 60 may be read as, if you can say VO, O. So all these are related to visual perception. 38 may be read as 33 or 88 or 83. So that way. So as you can see, a page out of a maths textbook, written work on the board, or a word problem sum can be a bewildering combination of letters and numbers which mean little to the child. But at this time, what I will say, because that is the age when children really develop in other skills also. Like if you see, they will be developing in a PE field, like in PE field, physical education field. But sometimes what we have noticed, when children is a child is with he's a child with specific learning difficulty, then you will see other signs also, like that child can be clumsy also, or that child may have some sensory issues also. So you have to relate, you have to be very alert while taking out that child as an individual with some specific learning difficulty. So that way.
Okay. So ma'am, we're talking about these. It's about writing also.
Yes.
So does that come under the category of dyslexia?
No, basically I will just differentiate it. There are 2 types of problems what we observe. One problem is when child is having reading problems, and automatically if a child is having reading problem, his written expressions will be affected. Like what a child wants to write, when he is not fluent with reading, when he is not and reading is becoming so stressful for him that comprehension is also becoming a problem. And when reading comprehension is becoming a problem, writing expressions will be affected. So that way, that is one problem which is related to dyslexia. But yes, definitely we have seen children who are fine with reading and reading development, but they have specific problem in writing. Then we name them as dysgraphia. We say that yes, this child is suffering with dysgraphia, but dysgraphia is basically a motor problem, where children have writing problems because of so many there are so many reasons behind
Fine
it.
motor problems.
Maybe muscle sensitization problem, maybe hypersensitivity of the muscle. So then we really have to assess the child, what is the actual problem behind it. And sometimes children are very slow, their pace of writing is also very slow. So we have to see where the actual problem is lying, and according to that we start assessing the child.
So can we say that a dyslexic child
Mhm.
can have a problem of dysgraphia also?
Yes, sometimes we have seen. But usually what we have seen that dyslexic children will have problem with written expression, but their speed and everything will be fine. So though there will be many spellings which will be wrong, they will make many spelling mistakes, but they are okay with their pace of writing. But we have children who are only showing dysgraphia, and we are helping them in another way. There are other ways to help them out.
Or like in case when a child is having dysgraphia, has a dysgraphia problem, then we can also say just not because of the fine motor problem, there is some perception problem also. The
Yes,
child
that's
read
what I'm
it wrong.
saying. Ki sometimes what we have seen, not only pace of writing is a problem, but these children, they have problem with expressions also. When they're writing down whatever they know, but when they're writing it down, they don't know how to express. Then we really help them with written expressions also. We really help them with creative writing also. We really help them with framing the correct answers also. So yes, definitely they show these problems, but it's not that ki this will be there or that will not be there. Sometimes the combination is also very unique. Every child is a different child, so based on their strengths and weaknesses you have to plan your IEPs, like individualized education program. So it depends.
Okay. So what more do we have, ma'am?
Yeah. How children with dyslexia can have trouble with maths. Like we have seen that children who are suffering with dyslexia, as I have just said, that they have problem with reading also, reading development also. So when children have problem with reading difficulties, when they have reading difficulties, we have seen that they are okay, they are fine with straight maths problems. But when there is a word problem, then they usually face problem. Why? Because again word problems is language based, and they have problem with language. If they have problem with reading of a word problem, understanding of a word problem, they will have problem in understanding the word problem, and then finding out the operation, what operation they need to apply, they have to think about it. So that is again related to reading perceptual skills, reading comprehension. So they have to read, they have to understand, then they have to find out the operation, they have to think about an operation. So like how children with dyslexia can have trouble with maths, you can look at this slide. Language difficulties with word problems, organization difficulty with step-by-step maths. Symbols and letters, algebra often looks like a frightening maze of Greek to them. So I think just read this slide and you carefully, and then you will understand it more. Like here we are saying language difficulty with word problems. As I've been saying it for quite some time, that yes, definitely they have problem with reading and understanding of what is written. So when they have problem with understanding of the language, they will definitely show problem in reading a word problem and understanding it. And when he or she is not understanding the word problem, he or she will not be able to find out the correct operation. He or she will not be able to find out that what they have to do next, how would they write the statements. So usually what we are seeing, that these children will have problem, definitely even if they learn what operation they need to apply in this word problem, they have problem with statements, with writing statements like this. And then symbols and letters, algebra often looks like a frightening maze of Greek to them. Some children have problem with symbols also, but again if they are very specific problem only related to symbols, only related to numbers or number operations, and they are not showing problems otherwise reading, writing, spelling, then we say yes, so this child might have dyscalculia. So dyscalculia is another term which we use for specifically for problems in maths.
So ma'am, can we say like the learning disability has 3 types?
Yeah.
The dyscalculia, the dysgraphia, and the dyslexia.
Yeah, basically we say that we use this term specific learning disability as an umbrella term, and under this umbrella it has dyslexia, it has dysgraphia, it has your dyscalculia, And dysgraphia, they say that it is related to dyspraxia also somewhere, because we all of us know that what is praxia, it's a motor planning. So when children have problem with praxic movements, with motor planning movements, they show problem here also. Dysgraphia is like we have seen that it's related to that also. Children show problem in motor planning movements also. Motor planning, basically motor coordination or planning of a motor activity also.
Ma'am, could you give us some example of this?
Okay, like I'll tell you, if you see at small children, again I will say, when their gross motor is developing, after some time they try to ride a bicycle, they learn to ride a bicycle, they learn to ride a tricycle, and then they learn to play basketball, they learn to play volleyball or football or cricket. But some of these children, again not all of them, and everybody will not show these signs, but some of them will show the problem with going on swings, or basically they show problem with vestibular development, vestibular area of the brain, which is responsible for the brain and for the balance and coordination of all the body movements. So they show problem there, and because of that they show problem with motor planning of, maybe they are not able to learn basketball effectively, or they are not able to learn it in such a manner that other normal children are developing, are learning it, So and motor planning also affects other things, like when they grow up, they will play badminton, this and that. So there also, that effect is there if you don't work in that age, if
so
you don't
can
start.
say that these areas are the very gross areas, and like the writing part becomes a finer area.
And automatically, if gross areas are affected, fine areas will be affected. And then if you look here, if we if you just look at this slide, dyscalculia, basically here the problem is only related to maths, division, sign, multiplication signs, numbers, number perception, number concept. So like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, or they must be they show some problems here also in perception of these operations also. So like if you look here, condition developmental or acquired, sometimes we say it is acquired because some children somehow they acquire it, and affects the ability to acquire math skills. Basically when we are talking about dyscalculia specifically, here only their math skills are affected, as we have been saying it also, and they don't have problem with reading, they don't have problem with spellings, they don't have problem with writing otherwise. But yes, definitely when we talk about plus, minus, multiplication, when we talk about numbers, when we talk about number concept, what does 5 mean, or what does 5 plus, what will be 5 plus 4, or if 5 plus 4 is equal to 9, so 6 plus 3 is equal to 9 or not. So these are addition facts, or maybe like 4 plus 2 is equal to 6, so what will be 2 plus 4? So these simple problems become difficult for them, and difficulty with intuitive grasp of numbers also. They show difficulty with number facts also. Difficulty with spatial relationship. Here I would like to emphasize more on it, as I have been saying that yes, definitely these children show problem with vestibular area, development of vestibular part of the brain. You must have noticed some children, they are scared of going up on slides, or they are very scared of going that round and round. There are some swings in a park, in a playground, and they will be very scared of going on that. And these children will also, you will see problems like they will be confused with their right and left, they will be confused with their up and down, or if it is up on if I'm sitting here, what is upside, what is downside, or what is on left of this table, what is on left side of that table, or what is on right side of that table. So directionality becomes very difficult for them to understand initially, though when we work on it slowly, we start doing early intervention, they get rid of it, but slowly, and sometimes it becomes difficult also to make them like it's difficult for them to get rid of it also. But definitely working in a very small age, when they are 3 plus, 4 plus, till 6 plus, 7 plus, it really helps them. Early intervention really helps them. And spatial relationship also becomes very important. They should be aware of their body, they should be aware of their body position in space, and position of other objects in relation to their body. So that is what is spatial relationship. When they have problem here on their body and objects related to body, and location of these objects in relation to their body, like regarding directionality, regarding laterality, definitely they will show problem in geography and graph also.
Okay, like, so it's not just about a problem in grasping numbers, it's also about the calculations and
Yes, and understanding the signs also.
signs also. And with in respect to the spatial relationship, if we talk about the graphs and the geometry part that we have, they have problem in that also.
They have, you know, they show problem like how to make a straight. Sometimes making a straight line is also a very difficult task for them. Making a triangle is a difficult task for them. Making an angle is a difficult task for them. So because somehow they have to organize, you know, they have to see where are they going. Do they have to go up? Do they have to go down? Do they have to go, you know, left or right? So because they have problem in their body perception, in their spatial relationship, so these problems get reflected back again in academic. And all this will be revealed through significantly lowered maths achievement. So you will always like it will be reflected in form of low achievement. This child is not able to perform in maths, or he's not understanding some operations. So that way, you know.
So like dyscalculia, it's more about the maths.
Yeah.
Dyslexia, it's about more of the
Language
development.
reading, writing, spellings, basically.
Okay. So in case of dyslexia, if you just go back and so can we just say that they're more of a grammar problem also, or it's just about the spellings?
You know, when we talk about grammar problem, that is a secondary problem what they develop. If a child is not able to read properly, if he is not focusing more on reading, if he is not a fluent reader or a silent reader, then obviously he will have problem with sentence formation, because he is not able to, maybe he's you know what you call skipping, he's skipping is or he's skipping are. So omitting, we say that omit करता है words को, delete मतलब उसको देख रहा है पर उसको पढ़ नहीं रहा है. जब वो उसको ठीक से पढ़ नहीं रहा तो automatically it will be reflected back in writing, which you can say that this child doesn't know how to use is and are, this child doesn't know where to use is and are. So that way, you know, it will be reflected in that manner.
So till now we're discussing about learning disability. We have discussed that there are 3 types of learning disability: dyslexia, dysgraphia and dyscalculia. We started with dyslexia, which says that there is a problem in spelling, a problem in organizing the letters or the words. There might be the mirror image problems also. So basic problem that comes with is the perception, the visual perception in case of dyslexia. Then we talked about dyscalculia, that is more in concern with the maths, accepting the numbers, grasping the numbers, understanding the calculations, understanding the spatial relationship. So we talked about dyscalculia in relevance to maths, dyslexia in relevance to the reading. We'll continue our discussion after a short break.
ऑटिज्म एक व्यापक विकासात्मक विकलांगता है जिसके लक्षण जीवन के प्रथम 3 वर्ष में ही दिखाई पड़ते हैं, जैसे असंगत खेल, असमान स्थूल एवं सूक्ष्म गामक क्रियाएं, शाब्दिक संकेतों पर अभिव्यक्ति न देना,
देखो ओपन योर आईज, ओपन करो, ओपन करके ओपन,
नियमित कार्यक्रम परिवर्तन का विरोध करना एवं अवलोकनीय शारीरिक उच्च स्तरीय या निम्न स्तरीय क्रियाकलाप। UNCRPD 2007 सेक्शन 1 ऑफ आर्टिकल 4 निशक्तता के क्षेत्र में कार्यरत प्रोफेशनल के प्रशिक्षण पर महत्व देता है। ऑटिज्म के क्षेत्र में सरकारी एवं गैर सरकारी संस्थाएं कार्यरत हैं जो भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद द्वारा पंजीकृत हैं। सोसाइटी फॉर एडवांस स्टडी इन रिहैबिलिटेशन एक ऐसी ही गैर सरकारी संस्था है। कनिष्क 13 साल का एक ऑटिस्टिक बच्चा है जो इसी संस्था से प्रशिक्षण प्राप्त कर रहा है। असंगत क्रियाएं, कार्यकलापों में निरस्ता, असमान स्थूल एवं सूक्ष्म गामक क्रियाएं जैसे बॉडी रॉकिंग और फिंगर रिगलिंग उसमें देखी जा सकती है। उसे मैचिंग और पेस्टिंग, पॉइंटिंग जैसी क्रियाएं सिखाई जाती हैं।
वेरी गुड। ग्लास, वेयर इज द ग्लास? जो खाली बैग है। ग्लास, वेरी। कप को टच करो जल्दी से, कप को। वेयर इज द कप? वेरी गुड। कप में क्या करता है कनिष्क? टी पीता है। चलो ग्लास, वेयर इज द ग्लास? वेरी गुड। चलो बाउल की तरह, बाउल बाउल जल्दी से टच करो बाउल को। वेरी गुड। बाउल में क्या करता है कनिष्क?
तथा साथ ही साथ रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताएं जैसे खाना, पीना, कपड़े पहनना, और व्यायाम संबंधी प्रशिक्षण दिया जाता है। ऑटिस्टिक बच्चों को भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार की कार्यविधियां उनके स्तर के अनुसार सिखाई जाती हैं। जैसे कुछ बच्चों के लिए कलरिंग विद इन वन एरिया, मैचिंग एंड आइडेंटिफिकेशन, फाइन मोटर स्किल्स, आई हैंड कोऑर्डिनेशन, कंसेप्ट ऑफ वेजिटेबल्स, फ्रूट्स, बॉडी पार्ट्स, कलर्स पर जोर दिया जाता है तथा कुछ को प्रश्न पढ़ के उत्तर देने में और रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताओं को पूरा करने में सक्षम बनाया जाता है। इसके अलावा राइम्स, डांसिंग, सिंगिंग द्वारा लेजर एंड रिक्रिएशनल एक्टिविटीज में भाग लेने के लिए प्रोत्साहित किया जाता है। इन सभी कार्यकलापों एवं प्रशिक्षण का एकमात्र उद्देश्य उन्हें स्वनिर्भर बनाना है ताकि ये डगमगाते पांव सक्षम बन जीवन के एक एक पायदान पर दृढ़ता से आगे बढ़ें और अपनी मंजिल को पा लें। एक तारा टिमटिमाता, उसने आकाश को छू लिया। एक लौ जली कहीं, उसने अंधकार को मिटा दिया।
Welcome back after the break. Before going on to the break, we were discussing about the topic for today. Just for our viewers, our topic is learning disability, its different types and the management. Till now we discussed about what is learning disability, then the two types out of the three types. The three types are dyslexia, dyscalculia and dysgraphia. We had talked about dyslexia and we were talking about dyscalculia, that is in relevance to maths problems. So ma'am, would you like to continue?
Yeah, like here if you can see again the slide, according to Steve Chin, how can I recognize a child with dyscalculia? Despite appropriate teaching, like teacher is putting in all the efforts, teacher is doing, I think according to whatever is best for her, you know. So child will perform below expectations with no obvious reasons such as illness or emotional state. Child is not suffering with any illness, child is not suffering with any emotional imbalance, but though the teacher is teaching him well, even then this child is showing problems with maths, will have problems understanding the values of numbers. This child can show you the problems with values of numbers, number concepts, difficulty in recalling simple number facts, like he will have problem in recalling, like suppose teacher said, okay, today we are doing number concept, let me give you number 5. Okay, who will give me 5 objects? What does 5 number means? How many objects? So this child can show problem there also. Difficulty with retrieval of facts, word, problems also. Difficulty with mastering basic computation skills, problems of time and money. Like I told you earlier also that it's not only academic. Before academic also, if you are seeing that child having problem with small things, like if you have seen a small baby of maybe 1.5 years old, if you ask him, okay, पापा कहाँ हैं ऑफिस, पापा कितने बजे आएंगे शाम को, in that age also they start understanding what is morning, what is afternoon, what is evening. These children, they start understanding the concept of time in that manner. मॉर्निंग सुबह है, शाम है, दोपहर है, मम्मी शाम को आएगी या मैं दोपहर को खाना खाऊंगा. सो दैट इज द स्टार्टिंग ऑफ टाइम कॉन्सेप्ट डेवलपमेंट. आफ्टर सम टाइम चिल्ड्रन स्टार्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग मोर. ओके, कल पापा गए थे, आज मैं जाऊंगा, या दैट वे So again, these children who are having problem with learning difficulties, who are having specifically problem with maths, they can show you more problems there also. So parents have to be alert if they're seeing that their children are not, their development, the way of developing is different and very different from other children, then also they should be alert at that age also. They have problem with money also. We have seen small children, by looking at notes, even if they don't know the number, they don't know the value of that much, now that number 50 rupees or 100 rupees, even they don't know the value, but they understand that this note is big or this note is small, it has more, maybe it has more money. So that is the starting of development of money skills, money concept. So these children can show you more problems in money, more problem with time development, time concept development. So later on they will show problems in maths, in numbers, in number concepts, in number counting, in maybe counting rupees, or maybe when they're talking about time, or maybe when they are talking about conversions in time also.
So ma'am, like we talked about dyslexia, and they have a problem in reading.
Yeah.
So when there are word problems in maths, they might find a problem with reading the question, the word problem that is there,
Yes.
and then understanding that also.
Yeah.
So in that case, can we say that the child has dyscalculia or dyslexia?
That's what I'm telling you. When we are talking about dyscalculia specifically, these children will show you problem with operation signs also, and maybe understanding or perceiving addition as addition sign, multiplication as multiplication sign, or division as division sign. They will show you problem with right from number recognition, or maybe right from number concept. But when we're talking about children with dyslexia, they don't show all these problems, where you're talking about calculations, where you're talking about addition signs, or maybe other operational signs like multiplication, division. But definitely they will show problem with word problems, because there is a reason for that, because they're not able to read the word problem properly, so they will not be understanding it. If they're not able to understand the word problem, they will not be able to decide what to do and how to do it. So they will show you problem with statements, but children with dyscalculia don't show problem with reading development, or with writing development, or with spellings, but they show specifically problems here when you're talking about numbers, or when you're talking about number operations, different operations applying in numbers, that way.
Ma'am, like the first teaching way you've told us was that there's no obvious reason, such as the illness or the emotional state.
Yeah.
Generally, even in our case, when we're a little tensed, so everything becomes very vague around us. We're not able to concentrate on things. So can we say that recognizing in that case would be a little wrong?
Like you have just said, okay, in our case, if we are emotionally disturbed, so everything will be haywire, but that's once in a while, that's not the everyday thing, or that's not the again, like if you remember, I talked about the frequency of problems. So if they're showing it again and again, they're showing it, that means the problem is lying somewhere else. It's not only emotional problem. So emotional, okay, we also get nervous, but maybe once in a while, or not every day, not every moment of our life. So again, you have to observe, you have to be very alert while referring a child for the diagnosis.
So in case of dyscalculia, there is problem in formation of the number also, or just the grasping and the...
In case of dyscalculia, there is a problem with perception of numbers, not with numbers. Numbers are as written, numbers will be written as it's written for every child. Now 2 will be like 2 only. But where is the problem? Problem is basically with perception of numbers and with the perception of number concept. Like other children, even in a child with dyslexia who has dyslexia, he might write 2 as ulta. He might write the mirror image of 2. But he is understanding what does 2 mean. 2 means 2 pencils, 2 means 2 erasers, 2 means 2 chocolates. But 2 is 2. 2 has some value, but children with dyscalculia can show you problem here in understanding the values also, in number values, number concept also.
They also have a problem in what we call as functional counting, or we see the meaningful counting.
Yeah, basically it's number concept only, it's number values only. So that way,
Okay, so like if we say there are 5 things kept in front of us, counting them and writing the number 5, they have a problem in both, or they have a problem in one
That's
of
what I'm
them?
saying. Again, every child is a different child. So I cannot say that, okay, Sheetal will have problem with this and this and this because she's a child with dyscalculia. No, every child with dyscalculia will also show you degrees. Maybe very mildly he or she is affected, or maybe thoda moderately she or he is affected. But where are the problems? You really have to see. For each child is a different child. So for each child, the assessment will go differently, and the basic format will be same. Basic way of doing the assessment will be same, but your reports will not match. For each child, your reports can be different.
So like for dyslexia, we use GLAD as an assessment tool. In case of dyscalculia also we can use the same one.
If you look at GLAD will covers everything. It covers from Hindi, it covers for English, it covers for maths also. So it will give you what I will say, it will give you a sign. It will just give you a signal. Okay, when this child is having problems here or here or here, he might be having this or he might not be having this, but after that there are other ways of doing assessment. Like when a child is going to a school, teacher is the best person to assess him, because you have to observe him in a classroom situation. You have to assess him through his notebooks also, through his writing pattern also. You have to observe him while teacher is giving some sums also. So there are different ways of doing the assessment. Assessment is not only a GLAD based, though GLAD is a basic format with us, but when we are doing the assessment is a combination of observation also. You have to observe the child during homework, during classwork, during a class, when a class is going on. How is he performing? Is he getting confused, or is he getting nervous? We have to do error analysis. That is also a part of our assessment.
So what are the things that a teacher needs to take care of while handling a child with dyscalculia?
Okay, that is the management, and we will come to the management. But before we come to the management, we should just go ahead with the slide. Like if you look here, like possible factors that can contribute to difficulties in maths is reading accuracy. Like as I said, if a child is a child with dyslexia, there can be a combination also. It's not that कि अगर dyslexia है तो वो नहीं होगा, या अगर dyscalculia है तो another problem नहीं हो सकती. Sometimes we see the combination also, difficulty with symbols also, difficulty in pattern recognition also. If you remember, we do when we were small, we were doing pattern, we were doing sequencing of patterns like triangle, circle, triangle, circle, triangle, circle. Then what will come? Or triangle, rectangle, square, triangle, rectangle, square, triangle, rectangle, square, triangle. What will come next? So that is the sequencing. So these children show problem right from the preschool also. Difficulty with spatial awareness, as I have mentioned it very clearly. Reversals also, transposing also, copying from text or board, that is copying problem also. Sometimes children are not able to copy it down it fully. Sometimes they are copying it, but they are omitting some words. So they can have problem with copying. Directional confusions also, because child has problem with spatial awareness, spatial directions. That is why he shows problem with directionality also, right or left and left or right.
So, ma'am, like in my case, if I say I'm really poor at maths, so, and the more I practice, I find myself getting more confused. So can I also say that I have a problem of dyscalculia?
Every person is a different person. If you ask me, I will say, oh my god, I always get confused with the ways to different places. But that doesn't mean that I am a person with dyslexia. There are some signs, there are some, you have to, what I'll say that there is a criteria for everything. So we also have to look at symptoms, what all symptoms are there in you, what you're showing. So look, based on those symptoms only, based on those signs only, we can say, yes, this person might have dyslexia or this person might have dyscalculia. But even in our normal day-to-day life, we see many people, some people are poor in directionality, some people are very good with maths, but they're not good at some other thing, maybe poor in memory also, poor with organization skills also, but that doesn't mean that person has dyslexia. There should be a combination of signals, combination of signs. which should again give us a signal towards dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia. Like here, when we talk about difficulty with spatial relationship, we talk about geometry and graphs. Nightmare for the child, the lines, the measurement, each of them just becomes one more seemingly impossible hurdle. Basically, sometimes we have seen that they're really not able to draw lines also, it's very difficult for them to draw lines also. Then graph paper seems to be a sea of green with the lines blurring and meaning little. Means all of us know what is a graph paper. Graph paper is full of small squares. There are so many lines crossing each other. But these lines blurring, and sometimes these lines are so blurring for them that it's only meaning a little. It doesn't mean anything to them. Add to that the teacher's expectations, a peer group which may be doing well, and you can see why maths classes become his least favorite time. So you have to you have to look at combination of different signs, and based on those combination of signs only you can say this child might have again dyscalculia.
Ma'am, like these children with learning disability, should they be sent to special school or they should be kept under the general school?
What I suggest, I will not say that suggest, what I think after working for so many years with an inclusive setup, that children with mild learning difficulties to moderate learning difficulties, it's not difficult to teach them. Though you have a provision for them, you have special educators for them, you have a scope of adapting the curriculum for them. Though at present also I am getting children at home also sometimes, and these children are going to normal mainstream schools, but they are not able to cope after getting remediation from a special educator also. Why? Because when we talk about remediation, and we will talk more about it when we talk about management, it's not only remediation, we also talk about compensatory strategies. Every mainstream school, the school has to be prepared, and school has to have that much of facility that okay, if this child is slow in writing, we can always give them extra time. They should give them that kind of provision. Okay, extra time is required, no problem. Or if a teacher has to write with two different color chalks at home or on the board, on the blackboard, she should not have any problem. If teacher has to break down a task in small steps to accommodate that child who is showing problem, she should not have a problem. So that way, how are you managing your classroom? How are you planning your lesson plans? Are you applying multisensorial approach? If you're teaching a lesson, are you thinking of some nice ways of teaching it? Are you going through some resources on the net, or are you making a nice project or a very simple model to explain that? Like volcanoes is a topic, but it can be explained in various ways. One way, just making it on the board and explaining it. One way, okay, explaining it thak without explaining it with a picture. The other way, okay, you are making the child making models with clay, which is very easy. A child can get clay from home. So after that, you are providing a simple worksheet just to reinforce the topic. So how are you planning your lesson? That also becomes very important in managing these children.
Like ma'am, I have seen some of those children with learning disability. Once they were sent to a special school, their level had decreased even more.
Yeah.
And once they were kept with the regular children, they were really frustrated because they couldn't cope up with their friends.
That's why I'm saying that school should have a separate provision for them. Even if a child is going to a mainstream school, there should be special educators. One. Secondly, even if he is sitting in a class of 30 children, he should have some remediation classes outside the class. And if a school can provide a section, that is why we say that inclusion as well as integration will work more. Why? Because if we are seeing that child is not able to perform in maths at all, and his self-esteem is really going down, he is getting frustrated, and this can increase other problems like depression or suicidal attempts also, which is increasing in our country these days. So that child should take the classes separately. Teacher can simplify the maths, teacher can adapt the curriculum, or teacher can really simplify the maths to the functional, to that extent, so that he can learn functional maths, he can learn the maths which is applicable in day-to-day life. Because where do we use algebra? Where do we use other topics which are not applicable? So this child should be taught in a separate maybe in a with the special educator separately, one-on-one situation. But yes, definitely, and later on maybe in class 10 he's getting exemptions from one or two subjects, or he's choosing subjects which he can attempt, easily. So that way every school should think of some more compensatory strategies.
Ma'am, in case of algebra, if we talk about, there are alphabets there are letters
Yeah.
also, and there are numbers also.
Yeah.
So the child can have a problem, having a problem with dyslexia as well as the dyscalculia, might find it very difficult. So in that case, what is to be done?
Basically, we have seen, and what you are saying is very much right. We see children that they will face a terrible period. It is really like what I'll say. It's full of horror. Okay, when they know that they have to do algebra, they will be confused, they will be nervous, their self-esteem will really go down. Sometimes they break down also. Then it becomes very difficult for a teacher to teach them, just to make them sit and make them attend the class. So usually what we do, we are adapting the curriculum in our school also. And fortunately in our school we have ICC curriculum, that is separately in mainstream. But in addition to that, we have a separate department, special education needs department, where we are adapting the CBSE syllabus also, because many of our children who are having problems, they clear through NIOS, they go through NIOS, and we have NIOS in our different branch, in our another branch. So we prepare these children in CBSE curriculum, we adapt the CBSE curriculum to that extent that they are able to perform. So that gives them that happiness. Okay, at least we are able to do this. If we are not able to do that maths, but we are able to do this. And usually we skip algebra. We really don't involve algebra at all, because we know that is full of confusion, and nowhere in our life we are going to use it. So that's as you remember, I just said that applicable maths which is more applicable in day-to-day life, we would love to include that.
The basic maths, the addition,
Basic maths,
subtraction.
we have made our curriculum that is called functional maths curriculum, and children with mild to moderate learning difficulties can really attempt that. We teach them average, we teach them speed, distance and time, we teach them percentage, we teach them simple interest, but every topic, we relate every topic with its functional approach. Like when we are talking about simple interest, we are talking to them about bank account, about saving accounts. When we are talking about simple discount, we are talking about discount. We talk about all sales where they go for in markets, or if they are getting 10% discount in a restaurant, what does it mean? Suppose their bill is 1,000 rupees and 10% discount they will be getting on 1,000. What does it mean actually? So we relate, somehow we try our best to relate every topic of the math, whatever we are doing with them, with the functional approach. Like we teach them billing, we teach them how to make a bill, we teach them how to buy, we teach them shopping skills. So that way we involve many topics which are more applicable in our day-to-day life, and we know that these children would not be able to do higher maths like trigonometry, statistics. So we teach them in an adapted manner, so simple manner.
Okay. So what next do we have now?
Okay, algebra, letters and numbers and superscripts. By now it is obvious why algebra in particular can be a horrible, endless nightmare for the child with little on the board making sense. Simple strategies can help to make it easier for the child, so that the algebra sums begin to make some legible sense for the child. So basically now we will be talking more about strategies, more about management. How do we manage children? What all strategies we make so that these children can be managed easily, and these children should be able to learn, should be able to at least learn and do the basic education of class 10, of class 11. So here we again, like as I've said, it's a combination of compensatory strategies as well as remediation strategies. It's a combination of your redesigning the curriculum, reframing the curriculum, or maybe adapting or modifying the curriculum. So keeping all that in mind, keeping the curriculum in mind, keeping the infrastructure in mind, keeping the board exemptions in mind, we plan the curriculum. That should be, I think every school should take the initiative in doing that, because that way they would be able to accommodate more and more children, and more children would benefit from them. So I'll just give you an example. A person who is disorganized, tripping over things, may say free every time he tries to say 3, may do the sums correctly, but it appears to be all over the page. The rough work may be in another page. maybe he is dyspraxic, a difficulty with coordination, getting the body to do what he wants. Or if you look at a boy or a girl has difficulty with written work, maps, drawing, etc., or will often be told by the teacher that his handwriting is terrible. Despite repeated sincere effort, the writing does not improve. So we have seen children and teachers come to us, or mainstream teachers come to us, oh my god, look at this child's writing, it is not legible, I am not able to read it, all the letters are overlapping, sometimes words are overlapping, sometimes there is very minimal space between the words, sometimes there is no space between words, sometimes there is so much of space in between words. And we have seen children that sometimes they're making letters so big, we call it macro writing, sometimes they're making letters very small that it is not legible again, so that is called micro writing. So here we see children with different problems, but again I think intervention helped, and especially early intervention really helps. So if we know a child, if we are seeing that this child is different and very much different from other children of his or her age, then I think we should start work right from preschool age. So because that is the age when we work on their gross motor skills, their fine motor skills, definitely their directionality, their laterality, then we have seen that by working on all these sensory issues, their academic definitely will improve. It will improve. So early intervention really helps.
So till now we are discussing about the topic learning disability. We discussed about what is dyslexia, the different characteristics of dyslexia. फिर हमने बात की थी dyscalculia के बारे में with respect to maths, जिनको generally numbers concept, calculation के बारे में problem होती है और disorganized होते हैं, अब spatial relationship के बारे में problem होती है, they have a problem called dyscalculia. Then we started with dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is more with the writing part. Dyslexia was the reading, dyscalculia is related to maths, and dysgraphia is related to writing. We'll continue our discussion after a short break.
The chief handicap of the blindness is not blindness, but the attitude of seeing people towards them. आइए जानने और समझने की कोशिश करते हैं कि बधिरांधता यानी डेफ ब्लाइंडनेस क्या है। बधिरांधता एक स्थिति है जिसमें दृष्टिहीनता एवं सुनने की शक्ति में कमी आती है तथा जिससे विचारों के आदान प्रदान और रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति में समस्या उत्पन्न होती है। बलराम एक 9 साल का बधिरांध बच्चा है। वो एक प्री मैच्योर बच्चा है जिसका शारीरिक विकास उसकी आयु के अनुरूप नहीं हुआ था। वो एक निम्न वर्गीय श्रेणी से संबंध रखता है तथा 5 साल से लगातार नेशनल एसोसिएशन फॉर ब्लाइंड दिल्ली के प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम से संलग्न है। इन 5 सालों के अंतर्गत उसे रोजमर्रा के कामों में, हलन चलन में, उसकी शैक्षणिक जरूरतों के अनुसार संप्रेषण द्वारा प्रशिक्षण दिया गया है जिससे वो इन सब क्रियाओं में स्वावलंबी बन सके। बलराम बिना किसी सहायता के चाकू से फलों को काट सकता है। उनके छिलकों को कूड़ेदान में डाल सकता है। अपने बर्तनों को खुद साफ कर सकता है। उन्हें सही जगह पर रख सकता है। सही बर्तनों का चयन करके खुद खाना खाता है। एवं पानी की बोतल निकालकर पानी भी पीता है। इन सभी क्रियाओं में वो टेक्चुअल साइन लैंग्वेज से निर्देशों को ग्रहण करता है और अपने भावों को व्यक्त करता है। टेलर फ्रेम और ब्रेलर द्वारा गणित पठन लेखन में भी प्रशिक्षण प्राप्त कर रहा है। सभी बच्चों की तरह उसका भी एक मनपसंद खेल है। उसे सेल फोन को अपने कानों पर लगाकर उसका कंपन महसूस करना अच्छा लगता है। कहा जाता है, वॉकिंग विद अ फ्रेंड इन डार्क इज बेटर देन वॉकिंग अलोन इन लाइट। कहने का तात्पर्य है कि वो लॉन्ग केन ट्रेवल, टैक्टाइल पाथ, ट्रेलिंग और लैंडमार्क्स द्वारा हलन चलन में भी सक्षम है और व्यायाम संबंधी क्रियाएं जैसे ट्रेडमिल, स्टैटिक साइकिल का स्वचालन भी कर सकता है। कहा गया है, द बेस्ट एंड मोस्ट ब्यूटीफुल थिंग्स इन द वर्ल्ड कैन नॉट बी सीन और इवन टच्ड, दे मस्ट बी फेल्ट विद द हार्ट।
Welcome back after the break. Before going on to the break, we were discussing about dysgraphia. We started with the different problems that a person with dysgraphia suffers from. Basically, dysgraphia जो है वो राइटिंग के बारे में है। जब एक बच्चे को बहुत प्रॉब्लम होती है लिखने में, हम देखते हैं कुछ बच्चों की राइटिंग या तो बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ी होती है या बहुत छोटी होती है। वो पूरे पेज में एकदम वेगली लिख देते हैं, कैलकुलेशन पूरे पेज में करते हैं या एक क्वेश्चन को करने में ही पूरा पेज यूज कर लेते हैं। These kind of characteristics might lead to a problem called the dysgraphia. Now, ma'am, we were talking about the intervention part. So, how can the teachers help in that case?
Basically, when we talk about intervention, we have to start, as I'm saying, that we have to start right from the age when they're in preschool. If we see that our child is very, this child is clumsy, or this child is not as active as other children, and this child is again showing problem, or he or she is not able to achieve all the milestones which they should have been, they should have achieved by that age. So then we start working at that age. And when we talk about early intervention, we have to be again very, very particular about our plan, depending upon his need. If we are really seeing that this child is having problem with body perception, problem of perception of directionality or laterality, like he is not developing the right hand dominance or the left hand dominance, then we should start, when we plan, we should involve gross motor planning activities for him. We should plan some sensory motor activities for him, and we should also plan fine motor activities for him along with pre-academic concepts. And when we talk about gross motor planning or just developing the vestibular area of the brain, we really work on the balancing. and balancing, like balancing on one foot, stair climbing, or hopping on one foot, hopping on both feet, or maybe by using a trampoline. We when we work on vestibular area, we just make them stand on a trampoline, and then we just try to bounce them on it. And along with the trampoline, we can use swings. We can ask him to stand on that swing, and just to maintain his balance, by firstly we hold them, we give them physical support, and slowly we can reduce the physical support. We can ask them to stand on a slide on top of it, just with support initially if he or she is very scared, but slowly we reduce the support. And why we are saying that working on vestibular area is very important, because usually we have seen that if a child is not good with balance and coordination of his body movements, then he or she will show the problem in academics, and they show. So we have seen children at the age of 13 years old, 14 years old, 10 years old, that they are not very good with running, they are not very good with balancing, and they are not very good with threading a needle, or maybe putting some beads in a thread. So because they show all these problems with coordination, where we say that midline coordination or crossing midline coordination, that's why we need to work on these problems along with pre-academic concepts and academic concepts. And there is a way of developing academic concept for these children. And as we all know that Fernald's method, there he used so many things, like he used sand, he used water, he used his a child's own body to teach him number two, how to make number two with when your arm is straight, and if you make number two, all the muscles are getting the feel of number two. What is it, how do we make it? And then the same message goes to the brain, it settles down in brain. If you are taking a small shoe box and putting silver sand in it, or red sand in it, and then making a number two, or making curve, or making the in it, that gives a sense, that gives a stimulation through the finger, through the skin, and the same stimulation goes to the brain, and that settles down easily, that settles down fast, as compared to only blackboard writing or seeing from the blackboard. Same for spellings. We can do so many different activities, like writing spellings in sand, writing spellings with glue and glitters in it, writing spellings with color on your finger, and or maybe you speak that word and then you write the spelling, or you can write the spelling on the computer and computer is speaking for you. So there are different ways. How can you make your teaching creative? How can you modify your teaching methodology? How can you make your teaching easy? By breaking the task, and then by thinking of 100 different activities, by saying this 100 different activities, I don't mean that you plan 100 activities. By that way child can also get confused. You just plan your activities in a structural way, but it should be multisensorial. Think of all the senses: touch, feel, seeing, hearing, and then doing it. Kinesthetic learning, by moving your body or by moving your joints. And then plan your lesson effectively, plan your lesson in a structured manner, so that the child is able to learn effectively.
Ma'am, so like in case we're talking about dysgraphia right now,
Yeah.
it's more about writing part.
Yes.
We need more of fine motor.
Basically, writing is related to your finger motor coordination. When you're writing, your brain is working by sending the messages to the hand or to fingers, that how to move now, how to do it now. It is related to your muscle coordination also. If your muscles are not working properly, or your muscles get fatigued, if your muscles are getting tired soon, then how would you be able to write? Then automatically you would not be able to complete the passage. You will be leaving it in between.
So what kind of different fine motor coordination activities can we do?
Like when you start with, you look at your fine motor milestones. Your fine motor milestones say that first the child takes out this finger, and then slowly he does this first. He holds a glass like this, and then he can hold the glass like this also. So we always have to look on our fine motor milestones, and based on fine motor milestones, based on the present level of each child, okay, now my child is able to do this, but he is able to do this, but he is not able to do this. For writing is much finer movement. So what can I do? What kind of activities I can plan? To start with, never give him or her a pencil. We have seen in preschools, they will always start with the pencil and the paper, and they will ask the child to write numbers, ABC, which is wrong. Always start with pre-writing patterns. in a maybe with your fingers, a child with his or her own fingers, a child can make pre-writing patterns like this, or child can write pre-writing pattern, he can make pre-writing patterns like this, or he can make big pre-writing patterns on the floor. Then slowly he can make numbers like this. So then you move on to a thick crayon first. After moving on to thick crayon, you move on to a thick pencil, and then go on to the thin pencil with the tripod grasp, because children will develop it slowly. So this is regarding the fine motor development, and it can be improved in various other ways, like children can play with clay, they can make models with clay, they can play with colors, they can play with sand, they can play in a sand pit, they can pour liquid from one place, container to another. So there are so many activities. There are crossing midline activities which are very important for coordination. You can ask a child, okay, now you hold your right ear with your right hand, now you hold your left ear with your left hand, or just cross midline, you cross your hands like this, now hold your left ear with your right hand, or right ear with your left hand. So there are many coordination activities which you can plan. You can always go on the net, you can search for new activities, you can look at different books to plan different activities.
Ma'am, when in case we're watching a child's coordination level, in case of non-equilibrium things, we see like finger to finger, finger to nose, or even making a circle in the air. So these things can also help.
Yes, usually if I don't know how many of you know about the GLAD. If you look at the GLAD assessment, in first few lines, they are assessing the child this coordination. This is a very fine coordination. If I close my eyes, I can do it easily, but for a child who is having problem with this, who might have problem with this with writing in future, that child can show these, he may not be so good, his finger can go like this, or his finger can go like this. So when I'm saying I can do this also, I can do this also. So there are so many coordination activities which you can assess him for, and which you can work on.
So on the academic part, we can also teach the child by just making simple small lines also when the child has started.
These are all pre-writing patterns. You have to, there are milestones, there are pre-academic milestones also. FAB is a good checklist. Through FAB checklist, you can see that, okay, what this child will develop in pre-writing skills, what this child will develop in pre-reading skills, what this child will develop in pre-maths or other areas, reading development, pre-reading development, pre-writing development. According to the age of child, they have divided the milestones step by step. So looking at each milestone and looking at the present level of your child, you can always plan ahead, but you can think of different creative activities to implement the same. So implementation also becomes very important. How are you planning your lesson? That also becomes very important.
So in case like a child with dyslexia, in case a child with dysgraphia and dyscalculia, and another child having either of the three or all of them, each of them will have a different IP, the individualized.
Yes, they will have
educational plan.
Yeah.
They'll have different.
Every child is a different child. Because usually we see that children with specific learning difficulties, they have the normal IQ. They are with average intelligence. Sometimes above average intelligence children also are there who show one or two specific learning difficulties. So usually these children are having specific learning difficulties, though they have normal IQ.
Like in case, ma'am, I had seen a case where there was a child, he had no problem with any of those concepts, he was very good at writing.
Yeah.
He mostly problem was with the maths, the division questions that were there. So in that case also, he used to understand once I used to tell him, and the next day when the same thing was repeated, he used to forget it.
Okay.
So is it related to the memory, or
Yes, when we talk about specific learning disability, we see that children have poor memory also. Sometimes they have poor short-term memory, then sometimes they have poor working memory also, and sometimes they have poor long-term memory also. So again, based on that child's need, we have seen that children are having poor working memory. You know what working memory is like, if we are doing 7 plus 8 plus 4 plus 2. So here I have to keep it in my mind, 7 plus 8 is 15, plus 4 will be 19, plus 2 will be 21. So my brain is working all the time and I am solving this small question. So this is a working memory. When child is writing from the board, that is also a working memory. So sometimes children have problem with working memory, and when they have problem with working memory, it doesn't get registered too well. in the brain. So again, the short term memory also gets affected. When the short term memory gets affected, the long term memory will be affected, So yes, memory is we can say, yeah, it can be affected.
So like a child with mental retardation generally has a learning disability, but a child with learning disability might have or might not have mental
Usually
retardation.
no, children don't have mental retardation. They have normal IQ or average IQ. But what happens, even if a child is slow learner, his secondary difficulties will be reflected as difficulties of learning disability, as child with specific learning disability. Because if a child is slow learner, he will be slow in reading development, he will be slow in writing development. But that doesn't mean that he's a child with specific dyslexia, specific learning disability called dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia. No, that doesn't
How
mean.
would we differentiate between a child with a slow learner and a child having a learning disability?
As we all know that there is IQ testing, though we don't go by IQ tests alone. We always look at the children. We always observe the children very carefully before we give any diagnosis. So when we are talking about slow learner, a slow learner child will be slow everywhere. He will be slow in play field, he will be slow in maybe in understanding also, or maybe in communication also, maybe in social skills also. But when we are talking about children with this only with specific learning difficulty like dyslexia, we are seeing these children are very smart. They're excellent in extra co-curricular activities also. They can like we have children who are working in call center. They were children with learning difficulties only, very specific learning difficulty like dyslexia. And these two children are like, their children are doing well now. After once they pass school, once they pass their college, they do well. It's not that they don't do well, but not everyone. Again, it depends on child to child. If a child is having severe difficulty with reading, writing, then he might be a child with functional literacy only. So children are different. But
also
usually
depends
we
on
see
the level of motivation from the parents.
obviously, as I said, that if school will not work, remediation alone will not help the child. If I'm working with one child every day for 1 hour and that child is not getting any support in school, there is no compensatory strategy is being applied in school, what will that child do in school? He would not be able to pass also, because no support from teachers, no support from school, no compensatory strategies, no remediation in school, no planning in school. So do you think that child will be able to successful? No, he will never be. So it's both, it's remediation as well as compensatory, but it depends how do you plan it.
Ma'am, one thing is also there, like we have the slow learners, we have children with learning disability. There are also children who are like dull. They're very lazy in performing a task.
Yeah.
They will not perform the question if they don't like it. So in that case, can they be categorized under any of these, or they're separate?
No, lazy is one thing. Again, it's a behavior. So the approach will be different. The approach of working will be different. Though again, as I said, that we have seen children with dyslexia that as secondary problems they show you like laid back attitude. Why? Because that's frustration only. That's their self-esteem is so down that they know that how much work they do, it will not help them out. So they become not they, I will again say not they, but some of them become lazy. Some of them show that laid back attitude. They don't take interest in studies, because again the pattern, you have to look at the pattern, how much help they have got, whether they are getting that emotional help, whether a counselor is helping them or not, whether a clinical psychologist or a special educator is helping them or not, whether it's self-esteem which is going down because of that this child is frustrated and showing no interest, or it's only a laid back attitude. So it depends. You have to differentiate it very carefully.
So ma'am, in case where a child is having an average intelligence,
Yeah.
and when the child was really small, now the child has grown up, and when the child was really small, he was sent to a special school, due to which he's just a learning disabled case, and he was sent to the special school. His level even more decreased. Once he grew up, the parents realized that this is not the right place for him. The psychologist consulted that it's not the right place. The child can study just on some few topics that the teacher can stress on.
Okay.
The child can study well, but by the time the child had lost interest in the studies. So ma'am, in these cases where the child did not have much of problem, but now due to lack of opportunities the child has become learning disabled, in that case what can be done?
Again, it is not a condition. In that case, You cannot again diagnose, you cannot again label the child as a child with dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia. You can say that this child is lagging behind in learning. There are learning gaps because of so many other reasons. So again, as I said, that you again have to look at different reasons. Why is that child showing lacks in studies? Why is he lagging behind? What are the reasons? Is there no support from home? Is he showing like laid back attitude? Is he not happy with his studies, or is he not happy with his teachers? Sometimes teachers can also play a big role. We have seen that a child who can do well, who has all the abilities, but is not performing only because of the teacher's alertness and teachers behavior also. Sometimes teachers are so rude, sometimes teachers are very nice also. So it all depends. Again, you have to be very careful when labeling any child. Usually as special educators, we do not label the children. We are not authorized people, only a clinical psychologist can do it on papers, and I think that also benefits the children in a way. Though we know that, oh my god, why labeling, it's a social stigma, but in a way we have seen it benefits the children. Well, at the time of getting, when they are getting exemptions in board, they can choose subjects according to their choice and according to their abilities. I will say not only choice, it's ability only. If a child is not able to do maths and sciences, please exempt him. Please, board should have those options to the child should be exempted from maths and sciences, and in place of maths and sciences he can take other subjects, no problem. He can take home sciences, he can take any other subject. If a child is with hearing impaired, he can be exempted from the third language, from the second language. So that way, some exemption should be there in our board system, in our education system also, so that these children will benefit. Because we have seen, we had one very intelligent child who had some specific learning disability. He was not only because of maths and sciences, that time he didn't get exemption. We had to just send him to our NIS system so that he can appear for different exams, and now he has passed class 12. He is doing hotel management, but at that time he didn't get exemption from maths and sciences, and he was not able to continue with the board only because of this small thing. So children should get exemption. They should be given their choice of subjects of their choice, subjects of their ability, according to their abilities. They should be able to choose their subjects.
So ma'am, apart from GLAD, what are the other types of assessment tools that can be used?
We devise it also based on our curriculum. One is GLAD. GLAD is a good one because it includes everything. It breaks the task. It breaks the task of your reading. It breaks the task of your silent reading. It breaks the task of your reading comprehension. It breaks the task of your maths when recognition of number is concerned, when understanding the number concept is concerned, applying the operations is concerned. So GLAD is one. It's a base. It is the base for assessing the children with dyslexia, dysgraphia and dyscalculia. But in addition to GLAD, what all we are supposed to use is based on our curriculum, as I said, based on our observation also, and then we can always refer them to a clinical psychologist so that they can because they have standardized scores for spellings, for perception skills. They have standardized scoring system. They have standardized tools to assess these children. So a combination of an assessment from a clinical psychologist, from a special educator, a complete education evaluation report makes a difference. So it's not a name, it's not that you use this or you don't use this. You have to be very alert with every child. You have to think of a combination. If a child is not showing any if a child is not is not showing major problems, then your curriculum based assessment can also help him out. So it has to be curriculum based when a child is coming to school.
Ma'am, like we talk about in a regular life, if there is a child who's been kept with some bad children who don't study, more of into play, the child will deteriorate. And if the same child is kept among those toppers of the class, the child will increase in grades and improve rather, right?
Yeah.
So similarly in this case also, children with learning disability, if they are being detached from the regular class and they have a different they have a different curriculum as compared to the other regular children, won't that isolate them into their
It isolates them. We have faced problems. You are very right here, where children don't feel like coming to a SEND department separately. Children don't feel like being labeled as a SEND child or a learning center child or a special education needs child. So that's why our main goal is to move more towards inclusion, where the complete inclusion should be possible. But here again, as I've been saying again and again, that teachers have to be very alert. If a child with mild dyslexia is sitting in a class of 30, and he should be attached to a special educator. Why? Because special educator would be there to look after him, to look at his work pattern, to look at his homework pattern, to look at his remediation whether it's required from time to time, and to look at his exemptions, in future if he needs some exemptions. So he should be attached to a special educator, but they should get a chance of sitting in a mainstream class if he or she is able to cope with the subject. But if he or she is not able to cope with the subject, with the mainstream pace, with the mainstream concepts, then definitely you need to convince these children. You need to, that counseling is required. So a clinical psychologist, a counselor also plays a very important role here. It's a teamwork, a team has to work with this child to make him, to convince him that no, this is not benefiting you. If you sit here, keep on sitting here, you will deteriorate, and then you will be, you will fail in every subject, and that will only lower down your self-esteem. Your self-esteem will be lowered down. So why not? Why can't we look at a different curriculum which is more easy for you, which is easier for you, where you are able to cope up? So there are different ways of teaching, dealing with children also. There are different ways.
So ma'am, who's a better teacher, a regular teacher or a special educator?
A regular teacher, if can teach well, if can break the task, if can simplify his or her topic, and can think of different ways to make that topic interesting, make that topic more useful, if can reinforce the concept every day. So it depends. Sometimes we have excellent teachers, but they are not alert. Sometimes simple teachers, normal teachers are very alert. So teachers' alertness also makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Ma'am, a child with mild dyslexia or any of these mild learning disability is difficult to be taken out, or is difficult to detect from the whole class in a big class of like 40 to 50 students.
So it depends. Again, I will say that when a child is very small in class 1, in class nursery, PV1, UP1, KG means, then again teaches alertness. If a child is having dyslexia, he will show the problem right from the beginning. So when other children are able to develop reading, when they're able to read, if this child is really having trouble with reading, he's omitting a lot, he is substituting a lot, he is substituting many words with many different words, he is omitting many words and not speaking them out, then teacher has to be alert. Again, teacher's alertness will really work. That really works.
Okay. So till now, we've been talking about what are the different management paths, how do we manage the different problems in case of the dyslexia, dyscalculia and the dysgraphia. We talked about how much a teacher plays a role, how much a special educator plays a role, and moreover how much does a school play a role in the improvement of a child with any kind of learning disability. We'll continue our discussion after a short break.
This is Aparna. She loves chess and Shah Rukh Khan. Her best friend is Swati. She also has visual impairment. This is Neeraj. He plays many instruments. He loves Mohammad Rafi and cricket. He also uses crutches for mobility. This is Raj Bala. With her husband and daughter. She loves cooking and watching TV. She also has cerebral palsy. Look beyond the disability. Look at the person.
कोई मुश्किल हो दूर मंजिल हो never stops us from dreaming हारता है वो हार माने जो we are what we believe in हम धरती को अंबर से मिला दे हम उड़ सकते हैं उड़कर दिखा दे हम छू ले सितारों को We can touch the sky आशा के पंखों पे We can and we will fly We can and we will fly
Welcome back after the break. Before going on to the break, we were discussing about the topic for today, that is learning disability, its different types and its management. We talked about learning disability. What is learning disability? एक पढ़ने में, लिखने में, मैथ्स करने में जब किसी बच्चे को बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम होती है, जब the frequent problems that occur, then we can categorize the child as a learning disabled. There are different types: the dyslexia related to the reading part, dyscalculia related to the maths part, then we had discussed about dysgraphia related to the writing part. Now we'll continue with the management part. Ma'am, I would like to ask you one question. Like in case we have children who come from a background where the parents don't speak English or any language we talk about. So in that case, when the child is sent to an English medium school, the child finds very difficult in
To understand the language.
comprehend and express both in English. So in that case, the teacher might categorize the child as he's not able to or she's not able to understand. That child is dyslexic.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. So we again, like we said, that we have to be very careful while detecting the children with, while referring the children for the diagnosis or referring them to a clinical psychologist. So like here, when we look here, what would make a teacher suspect that child might have learning disabilities? So like children are different. Some children come from we know that some children come from different backgrounds, and they don't have like they don't have parents who can speak English well, and they come to a public school, and teacher might suspect this child as a child with learning difficulty, specific learning difficulty or specific learning disability. But no, a child who is not from that background, suppose if I don't know Spanish and I go to a Spanish school, and teacher cannot label me as a child with suppose when I was small, I'm talking about that time. So teacher cannot label any child who is coming from a different background, but he or she is fine otherwise. It doesn't have problem with, suppose she comes from a reading Hindi speaking family, and she knows Hindi, she can read Hindi, she can write Hindi, she can comprehend Hindi, but somehow she is not able to learn reading developments, she is not able to read those simple passages also. Teacher should not label, and they should look at different signs. If she is very particular, okay, this children is showing all these signs which is the criteria for labeling a child with dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia, then it's fine. But if this child is not showing all those signs, only one sign cannot say that this child is a child with specific learning disability. And what would make a teacher suspect that a child might have learning disabilities? Because we know sometimes it's really confusing. for a teacher also. Like a teacher would notice a student not making progress in the areas of reading, writing, spelling, comprehension, maths, reasoning, problem solving. So teacher might suspect this student as a child with learning disability, but definitely there can be one or two students who will show problems, and who like where the frequency is really high. Then we can say, okay, this child might be, may be, but it doesn't mean that this child will be. So yes, you have to be alert, you should be alert. English language learners with learning disability, children who are English language learners sometimes have learning disabilities. These children have two separate challenges as they learn in school, but those two challenges are intertwined to such an extent that it is often difficult to determine the differences between language difficulties and a learning disability. There are similar patterns for learning disability across languages. In both Spanish and English, for example, children with dyslexia might have trouble processing sounds. So it's not only reading and comprehension. Before reading comprehension, a lot, much before that, processing of sounds come.
Even in case like we say we talk here in English in
Yeah.
a different manner, we have a different accent of talking in English.
Yeah.
And when we go to some other country, for example, if you go to America also, they have a different accent, and even the pronunciation of the word can also change sometimes. So the child might perceive the spelling that way also. Can we also say that the problem can be this?
No, suppose if we have a different accent, but even having a different accent doesn't mean that we will not be able to read. If you are able to read, if you are able to comprehend, because reading English would be similar. It's not maybe some pronunciations are different, maybe some spellings are different, but reading and comprehending is one thing. If you don't have any problem with reading, if you're not omitting words, if you're not substituting letters, substituting words, if you're not showing many spelling problems, the frequency is not very high, that means that you are not a person who should be labeled with learning disability. In both Spanish and English, for example, children with dyslexia might have trouble processing sounds, hearing sounds in order. Like I told you, if a teacher is saying black, but child is not hearing black as black, he is writing back. If a teacher is saying drum, but child is writing dumb, so that means he has problem with perception of sequencing of sounds also, perception of sounds also. Like drum, he didn't hear dr as dr, maybe he didn't hear r after d, he just heard dum, but he didn't hear r after d. So this way, sequencing of sounds or perception of sounds, they might show problems in it.
Many times the parents also think that the child has some hearing problem or the child has some other problem, so they
Yeah.
might also suggest to an audiologist who might go for a hearing test
Yes,
also.
yes, we send when we talk about GLAD assessment also. In that we always say, okay, how is the vision or how is the hearing, is it normal or it is not normal, is the vision normal, because sometimes when children have visual problems, they are not able to copy down. So that doesn't mean that this child is showing the problem with the visual perception, only that vision can be a problem. So you have again and again I'm saying one thing, that one has to be very careful while detecting or while
Assessment is-
labeling on assessment, as well as observation becomes very important. Teachers' alertness also becomes very important. Then distinguishing between two similar sounds, playing with sounds also, reading single words also, playing with sounds like rhyming words. If you remember, when we were in class 1 or when we were in KG, we were doing rhyming words: rat, bat, cat, fat. So we teach these rhyming words to these children, because children who show some problem with who show specific learning disability can have problem with all this, with rhyming words also. So reading single words also, they have problems. Steps for distinguishing between language difficulties and learning disabilities, it really becomes important. Screen English language learner students when they first come to school, use that as baseline. Employ research-based teaching strategies known to be effective with English language learners. Adjust and adapt these strategies as needed and monitor for progress. If progress is not adequate, seek expert evaluation. This is an incredibly complex situation, and researchers are working to find a better understanding of the overlapping issues involved. Meanwhile, teachers and schools have to work with these kids. These steps can help. The teacher is a detective who starts the process of identifying a learning disability.
Ma'am, before this, could you just tell us in a gist about the difference between the language disability and the learning disability? How do we distinguish?
Basically, language disability is nothing. Learning disability, when we talk about specific learning disability, when we talk about dyslexia, then we say, yeah, language difficulty. But why are we saying language difficulty? Because any language will start with recognition of letters, recognition of sounds, then forming a word with those letters or with those sounds, then reading those words, then reading a sentence, then reading a paragraph. That means you are learning about a language. If you cannot read, you cannot write. So for reading also you have to listen first. But if you have a problem with audio perception, then you must be having problem with listening. But you might not be having a problem with listening, but you may be having a problem with listening and then perceiving it. So it goes together. So that is a specific learning difficulty, dyslexia, which has secondary problem in language learning. Why it has problem in language learning? Because there's a problem with reading, there's a problem with recognition of letters and sounds also. But here when we talk about language learners have these initial difficulties, but slowly they will be covered. These difficulties will be covered and they will start learning the language. They will not show the same pattern as a child with dyslexia can show. So pattern of learning will be different, pattern of difficulties will be different. So like as you read here, gather such information. The teacher is a detective who starts the process of identifying a learning disability. Before a teacher detects a disability, he should gather such information as what was the previous language of instruction. Was a child exposed to English before? How many years of educational opportunities have they had? Have they been responding to that opportunity? Discuss this information with experts at the school. English language learner teacher, special ed teacher, school psychologist. As I said that it is a team approach. A team approach means a team has to work together. A special ed, sometimes as special eds we are not able to deal with some behavior, so we take help of a special help of our counselors, and as a team with help of counselors, with help of our other team members, some with the help of our other colleagues, we plan for that particular child. So school psychologist also plays an important role. Decides together if a formal assessment is a good idea. If all of them together feel that this child is showing these signs, and these signs showing these signs means this child might have problem with this or that, with specific, or this child might have problem of learning disability, specific learning disability, then we need to refer that child for the assessment. Assessment in both native language and English is equal to the good standard, I'll say. Gives a complete picture of what the student knows. Comparison of results can show whether the child's difficulty reach across both languages or are an issue of acquiring a second language, called dual language assessment. So we assess the child in both languages. As I told you that if a child knows Hindi language, you need to assess him or her in Hindi, then in English also. Who can perform dual language assessment? Ideally a bilingual school psychologist trained in assessment. Other bilingual staff members or community members who are trained to work in tandem with the school psychologist. Then a comprehensive dual language special education assessment looks at speech language, how well children understand concepts, how well they understand words, how well they are able to use words in their first language and also in the second language. Reading, ability to process sounds, ability to read words, ability to comprehend what they have read, then writing, then maths. So general assessment covers almost every area. It is vital that the assessment instrument is culturally sensitive, not culturally biased. Accurate, that it really measures the skills it is assessing. Vetted for reliability and validity with English language learners. Administered by someone who is qualified and trained to do so. So a person who is being trained, who has been experienced, that person should do the assessment.
Ma'am, like in a case where the child, we generally say a small child can learn things very easily.
Yes, we say that 0 to 5 years जो होते हैं,
critical
that
period
is the best period for language development. A child can learn 3 languages together. If a child belongs to a South Indian family, like suppose a Keralite family, he will learn Malayalam, he will learn English, he will learn Hindi if they are speaking Hindi also. So depending upon the exposure, depending upon the teaching, that child, this is the best age when they can learn languages.
Can it be also a reason for this kind of problem, that the child might get confused between so many words, so much of vocabulary to grasp?
No, usually normal children don't get confused. We have seen children with normal development. We have seen children with normal IQ who are normal, who don't have any specific learning disability, learning 3 languages at times and using them in different situations. They use it. We have seen that is the best age, I think.
So, ma'am, is it like learning disabilities by birth, or the child?
Yeah, that, as I told you, the research says that there is a problem with neuroprocessing. It's that way. So yes, definitely there is a problem with processing of information, perception of information, and then reflecting it back or recalling it back.
Because there are lobes in our brain, which some of them are at the perceiving part, some of them are at the writing part. So they might be
Basically,
affected.
When they perceive it, a brain perceives it, and then the brain brain stores the information, and brain helps in recalling the information. So they have problem in retrieving also, as we have seen. They have problem in recalling, they have problem in memory, sometimes they have problem in perception also. So it's all interrelated. Perception, if you are not able to perceive, if you are not able to understand what you are seeing, what you are looking at, or what you are hearing, you will not be able to register it in your brain. If you are not able to register it in your brain, you will not be able to recall it, so in a right manner. So the perception, achieving it, understanding it, then recalling it, all these are interrelated.
So what about this non-verbal period, ma'am?
Like English language learners, students often go through a non-verbal period in which they are absorbing information. Means they are not able to speak the language, but they are able to absorb, they are able to listen. As you know that any language skills are listening, speaking, and reading and writing, LSRW. So first of all we have to listen. A small baby listens. Even a 1 month old baby, when parents, when the relatives, when their friends, they talk to that baby, he looks at them, then he starts focusing, and then slowly he starts making some sounds. It's the same thing. English language learners, students often go through a non-verbal period in which they are absorbing information. They are only absorbing information. This silent period can be confused for a learning disability, when in fact it is just a part of the second language acquisition process. Acquisition is acquiring, perceiving it. First steps after the LD is identified. But once you identify that this child can have this problem, can have this specific learning disability, then these are the steps which we need to take. Once a learning disability is identified, an individual education plan must be formulated to figure out how to best help the student. For ELL students with LD, it is important that the plan includes what the language of instruction will be. And once that decision is reached, it is important to stick to it. Be consistent with the language of instruction, and give the students to respond, and give the students time to respond to that instruction model. So like we say, its rules are same. Special education golden rules are: break the task, simplify the task, do step by step, be consistent in your when you're providing the information and the pattern, be consistent when you're maintaining when you're managing a behavior. So all these steps become very important while teaching a child with learning disability, with a specific learning disability. Like, educator must consider certain adaptations when creating an IEP for the ELL student. How can we make what we are trying to teach more comprehensible? Do we need to take smaller steps in getting to the goal? Have we provided enough native language support so students can understand the information and reach their goal? Usually what we do, if a child is not able to understand English well, we make a paragraph in Hindi first, and then we help them out with the translation of it. Slowly a child starts learning. Okay, मैं जा रहा हूँ. How will I pronunciate in English? I am going. So I is what? I is मैं. I am जा रहा हूँ, going, जा रहा हूँ. जा रहा हूँ की जगह you put m, but you put m in I'm in between. I am going. Or मैं जाऊँगा, I will go. So here you are helping them with pronunciation, with a grammatical structure of a sentence, but so that a child is able to, when he is able to speak a grammatically correct sentence, he would be able to write it also correctly.
So like if we take it as an example, I am going, a dyslexic child might have problem in arranging the words or
Yeah, you can
arranging
write
the letters.
or like I will give you an example. Sheena is going to a market, so this child can write Sheena going a market, or maybe Sheena is going market. So he can omit one or two words like to or is, or maybe going ki jagah he can write Sheena can go, or Sheena can go, or Sheena go market, or Sheena is go market.
And
So-
also can be accompanied with some of the spelling mistakes.
Yeah. Spelling mistakes, you will see frequency of spelling mistakes will be high when a child is suffering with specific learning disability called dyslexia.
And in case a child with dyscalculia, the child might write it anyway in a slanting on a whole page if he's writing or
Yeah.
she's writing, not being aligned to some of the
Dysgraphia, you will see the similarity of his writing pattern. Like if a child is overlapping words, you will see in many way, on many pages that overlapping of words are there, overlapping of letters are there. It's not legible for a teacher to read. And sometimes children are writing so closely, words are very closer to each other. Sometimes words are, so there is a pattern and every child shows a different pattern. It's not कि अगर एक बच्चा मैक्रो राइटिंग कर रहा था सब मैक्रो राइटिंग करेंगे, एक बच्चे की ओवरलैपिंग होती है, सब जगह उसकी ओवरलैपिंग we know, and sometimes only the pace is slow. So patterns are different in different children. So that way our IEPs also become different. Now make sure students are following what's happening in the classroom. Define basic vocabulary words. Use visuals, use hands-on activities, as I said, make it as multisensorial as possible. Use lots of repetition, rehearsals and practices. Model activities, as I told you. Now speak slowly, clearly and naturally. Face your students and avoid putting your hands in front of your face. Be careful using idioms, for example, backseat, driver, ELL may take it literally. Alert your students when something is particularly important. Consistently use a phrase such as a key point is this. If possible, provide written notes that will help your students follow the lessons. Lower the level of background noise in your classroom to help your students hear. Allow a long pause between your questions and your students' answers. They need time to think. Then English language learners have twice the cognitive load. They have to learn a new language and learn new content simultaneously. So basically you have to differentiate a language learner from a child with specific learning disability.
So ma'am, in these cases like we see children who have learning disability, they need a lot of motivation level from the family, from the friends, from the teachers and from the school also.
Yes,
So that-
definitely, and that will, if we as parents and if we as teachers, we as special educators are motivated, we are committed, if you are giving your heart and body both, a mind and body both to work with these children, definitely there will be improvement in these children. But but in addition to this, if a school is not ready to support these children by adapting them infrastructure, by adapting their curriculum, then these children will not benefit.
Like you had mentioned before also, a clinical psychologist or a school psychologist is of great help. How can they help? Like school psychologists,
They are good
yes.
counselors. Sometimes we face emotional problems with these children. Like as I told you, if a child is not doing well, his self-esteem may go down, and if self-esteem goes down, he can face some depression problem or he can face some emotional setbacks. So here the school counselor can play a very important role, and there are many behaviors which as a special educator we are not able to control, but if we are getting a support from a clinical psychologist, from school counselors, from trained counselors who have those skills, definitely as a team we can work better.
Okay, so it's just that the child has to put a lot of effort. Along with him, there are many other people who will put in an effort.
Parents, teachers, special educators, a school principal, a school management, because somehow if management is not ready for adaptation in infrastructure, adaptation in curriculum, or providing education to one or two children separately with the help of a special educator, how will outside remediation will help him? No, he cannot be helped out. So school has to play a very important role along with the parents. If parents are not reinforcing concepts at home, whatever school does, whatever a special educator does will not help him out.
Ma'am, with all the efforts and everything with the child, can this disability be removed from a child?
you cannot say that you will remove the disability, but yes, definitely you can reduce it. You can reduce it to that extent that child is able to cope with his studies, child is able to pass basic education level, at least a child is able to go to university. Also now we have many children who are going to university, Delhi University, because they have a separate quota for children with specific learning disability.
Because like we've always seen in movies that they completely get apart from the studies and more into other co-curricular activities.
Sometimes we have seen children who are very good in music, who are very good in extra co-curricular activities like athletics. So based on that sports and this and that, they get admission in university, and later on if they can pass graduation and after that they do whatever, and you know, once they get according to their own choice and according to their own ability, which they can attempt easily, they don't face problems.
So the management part for the children with the learning disability, it's a little tough but not impossible.
It is not impossible. It's a support from everyone, and you know, that a teamwork which will help that child out.
So in our today's topic, we discussed about the different types of learning disability. We talked about what is learning disability. Firstly, learning disability is the disability related to reading, writing, calculating, and understanding the different context in our studies. Then we had discussed what are the different types of learning disability. We said there is dyslexia, there is dyscalculia, and there is dysgraphia. Dyslexia, ये कंसर्न है हमारे रीडिंग एबिलिटी से, कैसे हम रीड करते हैं, कैसे हम किसी चीज़ को समझते हैं. जनरली जो इनकी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स देखी जाती हैं, these are, they have poor spellings, they might jumble up the words, they might jumble up the letters, and they have a problem in organizing a sentence, framing a sentence also. Then we had moved on to dyscalculia. This is concerned with the maths. The child might have problem in grasping numbers, in understanding the concept of numbers, in calculations, and also we've seen it in graphs. The graphs that we have, the different kind of lines and coordination geometry that we see, they have a big problem with that, and especially with algebra, because the algebra involves the letters also and the numbers also. Children with dyslexia and dyscalculia find it very problematic. Then we had seen dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is to do with the writing part. A child might have very big writing, a very small writing, as we said, the macro writing or the micro writing. The child might not arrange it in a well aligned way. These are some of those problems which are seen. In case of dysgraphia, child can have dyspraxia also, which is the problem of the motor functioning, the fine motor, the ability to hold a pen, the ability to hold small things, to write or to organize things. Then we had discussed about what are different methods in which we can use it to do the assessment, to identify a child with learning disability from a group of regular children, like assessment tools like the GLAD, which can help us in the three different levels. Then we had talked about the different management. Management basically includes a motivational level from all the people surrounding that child. From a teacher can break down the steps in making the child learn it in a better way, can make it more clear to him and make it in a playful way so that it's not a stress to the child. The parents can motivate the child and not hamper his confidence level that he can study. So these were the different topics we discussed about today. We'd like to thank our expert today for taking out her time and sharing our valuable knowledge with us. That is all for our today's conference. I hope you liked our show. Thank you for watching us.